second. Just wait till you pass the ball. So we are live.
We are live. Nathan Baird from the Indy Star.
Sam King from the Journal and Courier with our annual snafu to start this thing as it appears.
Week after week after week. Hopefully, week after week after week is not what the lightning delays are. It's 2 in a row. And hopefully, for Purdue's sake, not a defensive performance like this week after week. After week, 56-30, Notre Dame. You know, there was a point in this game where Notre Dame, so Purdue did get a strip sack late in the first half, right before the lightning. Notre Dame did kneel down, and then it had scored on its other eight of the first 10 possessions. And it was just this defense really couldn't stop it. It tried different things schematically. It tried different people on the field. Notre Dame was just a much better offense than Purdue was a defense. And I don't know how else to say that.
It was evident from the first play, a 66-yard touchdown pass where, easy pitch and catch. And from there, Purdue trying to maybe adjust to the passing game and just could do nothing to stop the running game. Barry Odom did say that the line of scrimmage was definitely won on that side of the ball by Notre Dame. That was evident. I don't know what the final yards per rush for Notre Dame was, but it was around 8.4 at one point in the second half. So
yeah, I'm going to have to do some quick math here, I think. 43 for 254. So that's after they brought in the twos and everything. That's still 6 yards a carry. There was a point in this game where it was 7 going in, with 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The killer number to me was at that point in the game, I'm almost sure of this. Don't quote me on this, but I'm almost sure of it. I think it was 8.3 yards per carry on first down for Notre Dame in this game. That is insanity. And it was contrasted by Purdue's rushing yards on first down, which I believe at that point in the game was something microscopic. 1.3 stands out in my head. It might have been 3.1. Maybe I got that backwards. It was still a miserable number. And
1.3 sounds more accurate.
I believe it was 1.3, and that was sack adjusted, I think. But there weren't that many sacks in this game, really. And I think that both of those things had been telegraphed a little bit coming into this game. Mm-hmm. Certainly the rushing struggles for Purdue. Those have been there the whole time. We've been talking about it, that we thought, or at least I thought, that the coaching staff was maybe underplaying how poorly they were running the ball. And tonight, man, they got smacked in the mouth with it. It was really bad. And then some of the defensive issues that you saw tonight, I don't even know if they were so much present last week. It was a very different opponent last week. Look at the way that Southern Illinois came out and ran the ball and just and really diced them up on those first 2 drives, right? They corrected that in that game. They have a talent advantage in that game. When you don't have a talent advantage, I just don't know if there was any schematic thing that they could have done to fix tonight. I do think there was something they should have been able to do to make it harder on Notre Dame. Notre Dame made it look very, very, very easy offensively for themselves tonight.
I tweeted out at one point, Purdue has to adjust something and make the receivers beat the secondary. And as soon as I said that, Notre Dame hits a bomb down the field, and I was like, okay, but this is like, there's no winning because Purdue is outmatched, at least tonight, trying to do anything with its defense. And that's probably the more frustrating thing when you look at the fact that Purdue scored 30 points despite not having much of a rushing attack. And you think Purdue's going to come to Notre Dame Stadium, score 30 points. Okay, you'll take that. You feel like you're going to be in the game. And Purdue was not in this game pretty much after the last touchdown of the first half. It got away from the Boilermakers from there. The kickoff return, although it was something you can't afford to give up, it ended up not hurting Purdue. Purdue marches down the field, scores a touchdown to equal that in like 53 seconds. So that was kind of a wash there. But the rest of it, man, Jeremiah Love, Jerry and Price, they just tore up the Boilermakers on the ground. And even though Notre Dame didn't throw the ball a lot, Notre Dame threw for a lot of yards.
They did, and it was bang for buck there, right? I think there was a point where they had 6 explosive plays in the passing game for 193 yards or something like that. So, and I think CJ Carr was only like 10 of 12 at that point in the game. They didn't have to throw the ball. And I think I said it, I can't remember if I said it to you on the pod earlier this week. I know I said it to Jared Jesselaitis when I did his radio hit earlier this week on the Hammer, that, you saw Purdue against USC mix some things up defensively, right? We had not seen them, and when I tell you we didn't see them do a 3-man front the entirety of preseason camp, I do not think I saw them do a snap of 3 down. I must have missed it. I guess they must have done it, but I don't remember seeing any 3 down fronts through preseason camp. And they did it extensively against USC. And there were ways in which that was effective. It cost them in the pass rush, but it helped them defend a really explosive passing game for USC to some extent. And I thought in this game, they came out with a 4 down front because which is more conventional against a team that's going to run the ball well. And Notre Dame bombs it over the top for 65 yards to start the game and a touchdown. Then they came out in that 3 down front and were leaving a really light box, and they just couldn't stop the run. Like they just Notre Dame just continually carved it up. And it wasn't really just a schematic thing though, because when you go back and look at that game, it was like a clinic in the perils of arm tackling. Like it was guys just lunging and leaning and ultimately usually just missing. And you saw it over and over again at various spots. They weren't able to get any contain on the edge on some important plays. I think the secondary, not the whole secondary, but there are some positions in the secondary. I think you saw that with some of the rotations that you saw at cornerback and the guys that they were putting in the game in the second half at cornerback that need to start providing more run support to this defense because they looked very vulnerable to the outside, which we had seen on occasion in those first 3 games.
Yeah, and so I'd asked Manny Powell, linebacker, specifically after the game. You've now seen 2 of the nation's best defenses in back-to-back weeks. And
Offenses,
yes, I'm sorry. And USC and Notre Dame. Is the silver lining now that you have a week off and you've seen, 2 of the better offenses that you're going to see and find out where your weak spots are? Well, that can be a good thing, but also you could have the ability, the personnel to fill those weaknesses. And right now, I think Purdue might be what it is kind of to a degree. You can get a little bit better and scheme up some different things, but this today was just, I think, a talent gap as much as anything.
It was definitely a factor, and it was definitely emphasized in a real way. At the same time, Purdue was doing some of the things that it had done through a couple of weeks. It was an extension of what we saw against USC in some ways, that you're going into the lightning delay, and they're down whatever that was, 28-13, I guess, right at that point. Mm-hmm. But they blitz with Miles Slusher. He gets a strip sack, and now they're in great position to score again. And then the lightning comes. After they ran, I think, 1 play. They were facing 2nd and 10 at the 19 when they came back. But you're still thinking, like, nothing is really going Purdue's way in this game from, like, a down-to-down perspective. Like, Notre Dame is beating them down for down. They cannot stop them on defense, and the offense just isn't as – it has done some good things, but it's usually ending in field goals. Good game for Spencer Porath. But they just weren't able to keep up, and yet still – they've got 2nd and 10 at the 19 with plenty of time to get in the end zone again before the end of the first half. And then even after they only got a field goal and then Notre Dame runs the kickoff back all the way for a touchdown, they're able to come down and get another touchdown and kind of neutralize that. Like they were responding on offense. They've shown some grit. They've shown some fight. You saw all of those elements still there. And I think those elements will serve this team well at some point, but it's going to have to be, they aren't enough to close the talent gap in a game like this. It's going to serve them well, I think, in that stretch against Minnesota, Northwestern, and Rutgers, and maybe it can serve them well in some other game later this season. Illinois right now is getting just absolutely blasted back to the Stone Age by Indiana, so maybe that game is more winnable than we thought in 2 weeks when they come to Ross-Ade. There's some elements there, but they clearly are not ready to defend an offense even as good as USC, let alone one with this kind of weapons on the road. Yeah, and Barry Odom said after the game, because he mentioned that Notre Dame has 2 running backs that are among the best 2 offensive players in the country, but then he says, we're going to face good players every game for the rest of the season. And that being the case, you don't have a lot of time now to, try to play from behind, which is kind of what Purdue's been doing offensively for the last couple of weeks. But in terms of just trying to play catch up against the teams that you're going to play and scheme up something different, I do like there are positives from this game, or at least 1 or 2 really good takeaways, and one of those being Spencer Porath, who you mentioned. But I think Ryan Brown's becoming a really good passing quarterback, which was something going into the season. I thought, okay, he can do some things with his legs, and he's got the ability to throw, but maybe not consistently make plays with his arm. And I think that he's kind of becoming a guy who is consistently making plays with his arm in clutch moments. I mean, I've been impressed with Ryan Brown in a number of ways these first couple games. I have no idea if this microphone's working. Okay. It wasn't, the red light was on. So if you're just hearing us for the first time, I apologize, but the red light was not on a moment ago. No, I think Ryan Brown, I said this last week, I think Ryan Brown is playing well enough that you can see him being the reason why they beat someone they're not supposed to. That he can kind of rise to the occasion and make plays. He doesn't look out there flustered or behind the play or that the moment's too big for him. Has he made a couple of throws that he wants back? Absolutely, but every quarterback does. It's just that tonight, any mistake you made was magnified because this defense just was giving them no margin for error. I remember there being a third down drop by Jesse Watson, who then came back and had an awesome catch actually late in the game for a touchdown that didn't end up mattering in the finality of this game. But that was just when the game was still there to be competed for, and just dropping a third down that would have been a first down. And like there was a couple other instances like that in the game that they just can't afford when their defense is getting run off the field like this.
Yeah, Rico Walker was a guy who had a pass go through his hands in the end zone, and Purdue settles for a field goal in that moment. Felt like especially after the strip sack, that could have been a crucial play there in the moment. The way it played out, maybe not so much, but that's a guy who is a true freshman, hasn't really played a whole lot, and because of a situation with George Burhan, who we learned had an arm injury and left the game, didn't come back today. Rico Walker's now in a spot that he's a guy in that situation. It was a nice throw, right, threaded the needle through the defense, and he just didn't make the play. And Purdue absolutely had to make the plays. And I think that if you're Barry Odom and if you're Josh Henson, you probably don't want to settle for field goals there, but you also realize the importance of getting points on the board to maintain a two-score disadvantage to kind of cling to hopes of a comeback. And unfortunately, the defense just never came through with the play after that.
Purdue converted on all three of its red zone chances tonight, but only had three of them. I mean, it's so it's like a mixed bag. This team is still kind of enigmatic in some ways. Like it's doing good things, but sometimes it's not doing them enough, or it's doing a lot of things but not doing it well enough all the time. And they're just that's how it's going to be sometimes in these games, especially where I think, and Barry Odom didn't want to use this as an excuse, and I don't blame him, but I think this was not a talent equated game. I think Notre Dame is the better roster. And again, this is where it's not an equal game anymore right now. Like Notre Dame, while they use the portal too, they've been building towards this now for a couple of years with this roster, and you get to put your plan A in place at so many different positions. And this is not the case for Purdue. They had to make this roster on the run, and they're trying their best to equate in a game like this. It's just not very easy to do. And it was even harder. We found out after the game that they're not going to have TJ Lindsey. We saw him go out against USC, did not see him at practice on Monday, and he was listed as out tonight, and then Barry Odom confirmed after the game, out for the season with a torn ACL. And I think that's a huge loss because that was someone who, even going back to the spring, was beginning to make a name for himself as a real pass rush talent potentially for this defense, and someone who could make a difference. And they're not going to have him at all this year. And D'Amico Kennedy and some other guys are going to have to step up. But as you saw tonight against the best teams in the Big Ten, which Notre Dame is of that caliber, they can't afford to take anybody off the field that's one of their better players.
No, and the good thing now, I guess, is there's not a game next week. You get extra prep for Illinois, but I think kind of the way that coaches typically build in these bye week situations is you kind of use the first couple of days of that to work on yourselves, and then maybe you get a couple extra days prep to get ahead of schedule while that team is playing the next weekend, and then you get a chance to watch them and pick some things apart. But I think Purdue desperately kind of needs a week off right now after a couple of losses. Not even to so much get itself right. It just feels like it's kind of the right point, 1/3 of the way through the season, to have that week to reset yourself.
And Barry Odom said he thinks the bye is hitting at the right time. I think that's probably true. Maybe it would be even better in some ways if it hit after Illinois, because then I still think that 3-game stretch in the middle is so important for this team to end up feeling like it could have had a successful year this year. And then you would have 2 weeks to take all of this data from the first 5 games and apply it to that. But, you don't get to pick it yourself. And considering the circumstances, I think this probably is a good week. You've got a lot of data now from these first 4 games, and you've seen what you do when you're kind of able to push around some lower level talents. You've seen where you are when you have to play really good teams. And now you've got 2 weeks to take the lessons from this game and try to apply them to the next game you'll play coming out of the bye, which is at home, and it's against a program that, while they're very good this year, Purdue has owned that rivalry for the most part for the last 20 years.
Yeah, and I think there was a stretch where Darrell Hazel team went to Illinois and Illinois was bad at that time, but we got a win there. And it just seems like even
field goal,
the last couple of years, the best game Purdue played in each of the last 2 seasons probably was against Illinois. Part of that was probably the personnel and the staff that Purdue had knew that team a little bit better than some others, but just for whatever reason, Purdue gets up. There's another trophy on the line, the Cannon Trophy. So, it's a game that Purdue, again, is not going to be favored to win, but maybe a game where coming off of a weekend where you didn't have a game, there's a chance there to build some momentum before you get into that stretch of games that maybe Purdue isn't going to be the underdog in.
One thing before we go that I think is worth mentioning is I do think it's good that this team has been so bold in the way that it has attacked these first few games. And you've seen it now each of the past 2 weeks. And tonight it was this time a successful forward pass to Ryan Brown from Devin Mockabee after a handoff. You saw the fake punt. We've been waiting for when James Shebus was going to pull one out. Barry Odom said that they had already decided if it gets to that down and distance in that section of the field, they were going to try it, and it worked out. And Jack McAllister runs for a first down. Even the strip sack, they weren't blitzing a lot, I don't think, in this game. And Miles Slusher comes on a first down blitz, really well timed, and gets a strip sack, which could have changed the game. And I think this staff, and for talking to the players after the game too, the thing that you get is that it builds confidence in your players when you're willing to take those risks, because they know you believe in them, that you've practiced this all week, you've made it part of the game plan, and when the time comes, they will look at you and say, okay, we've practiced it, it's time, go do it. And for the most part, Purdue has been executing it. The one they really didn't execute was the one that went for the touchdown against USC. That was kind of a fluke, but tonight they were executing on those chances.
Yeah, and credit to the staff too, kind of going off of that. Ryan Brown said Devin Mockabee's pass to him for the touchdown in the first quarter was the best pass he threw to him all week. They ran this play all week and didn't have a lot of, I guess, don't want to say they didn't have success with it, but it didn't get executed the way it did in that game to perfection, where the throw was right, kind of leading Ryan Brown into the end zone on the catch. So, even when it didn't look like it was maybe the prettiest, they stuck with it and said, hey, we've got a situation here where this play can work and we can get some, I don't want to say cheap points, but get some points off of this. And this comes after, I think, a 1st and goal at the 9, and then Purdue gets a false start. So you're facing 1st and goal from the 14. So you need a big play there to get your offense back kind of in the positive direction where it feels like you can score a touchdown there.
Yeah, first there was an offensive line penalty on each of the first 3 drives of this game, and there were some more later in the game. I didn't think this was a especially good game, again, for an offensive line that is still trying to come together and strive for a good performance. I don't really know that they've had an especially good performance yet through 4 games. I think that's one area where Purdue probably has to look at things hard and decide if it's got the right 5 guys starting there. And if they are, how can they play better going into a game against Illinois that regardless of what ends up happening down in Bloomington tonight, and it was 35-7 late in the first half when we walked over here, that's still going to be a very good team that comes to Ross-Ade Stadium in a couple weeks, and a team that now will be playing playoff elimination games the rest of the way. I mean, they were a playoff kind of darling pick in the offseason, and this is going to hamper that if this game keeps going in that direction, and they're going to be primed for every game here on in, because if they lose another one, they're going home, or they're not going to the playoff, I should say. So we're going to wrap up there from South Bend. We've still got work to do. Read it on indystar.com, jconline.com. Thanks for watching.